Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here because I get to share a very dear friend of mine. She has become my friend over the last several years and has helped me do amazing things in my business. So I'm just thrilled to have her on this podcast. Cher, welcome. Welcome to the Accountable Podcast.
Hi, Amanda. I'm thrilled to be here.
I love it so much. You and I have such a fun story. I was trying to think of when it went back to, I want to say it was like 2019, 2020, like several years ago. And then we were able to work together when you helped me go on my amazing podcast tour for my book. So you've seen me through a lot of projects, and I'm excited to dig in on your side of the coin of looking at projects and goals and how you pursue them during times of your life that look different. So, different seasons of your life. But before we get into all of that, would you introduce yourself to those who haven't met you yet?
Yes, of course. My name is Cher. I am a parent to a 4-year-old daughter. For a very long time, I was solo parenting and now no longer am, which is a major change both in energy in terms of goals and accountability.
Right.
Which we can dig into that too. I am a business owner. So I have a business called Ginkgo PR, and we help under-recognized folks, usually authors and entrepreneurs, take back their narratives from the media and get seen for their stories using their own voices, usually through podcast tours or editorial features. And I am a multicultural first-generation woman in the US, just for context. That's always important to say.
Right. So many things. And I love how thank you for taking the time to introduce yourself and your business and all the different things. And there's so much more in there. But I think the biggest thing that we have to remember is that most of us wear multiple hats. And entrepreneur is one of them, but parent might be one, a friend, spouse, partner, sibling, all these things. Like we wear all these hats and we have these roles. And yet on this podcast, we're talking about achieving goals and holding ourselves accountable and getting those tools and those systems in place. But we also have to remember all the roles that we're playing at the same time, in addition to goal pursuit. So I'm excited to dig in and look at how different seasons have changed how you look at goals. And I'm curious if that's maybe where we could start of, has your relationship to setting and pursuing goals, how has that changed in different seasons of your life?
Dramatically. I would say when I first began my business, I was 21. So I was freelancing at first, and then I went full-time at 25. So I would say in that 4 or 5 year range, but maybe a little bit longer, I was very obsessed with goal setting because I wanted to be perfect. This was important to me, not consciously probably, but I wanted to be perfect. And I wanted to be the 6-figure business owner that was so touted in the girl boss era of online entrepreneurship. My shining goal, I wanted to be on the 30 under 30 Forbes list.
Right. Who doesn't, right?
It was a deep desire. And that began to shift for me right before I had my daughter. So I began to notice, what am I really working so hard for? And at the time I had been diagnosed with bursitis in my right shoulder from overwork primarily. And I thought, I don't play tennis or baseball. Right. I'm just out here throwing balls on my keyboard, right? Is this sustainable? And so this was the first of the many times that my body told me, hey, let's slow down a little bit. And it was the first of many times that I did not listen entirely. I listened a little bit, but I would say I got pregnant with Kiara, which is my daughter. I had her, and then that's when things really erupted for me in terms of clarity and insight. I was like, I can't keep running my business like this, working 50-hour, 60-hour weeks, not really putting a cap on my priorities or my time when I have this very little person who is entirely dependent on me. Something has to change. And so I made a lot of big moves at that time, but primarily I noticed what's most important to me in terms of accomplishment and how do I make sure that happens so that I can be a whole person instead of just a business owner. At that time in my life, my mantra was, I want my business to be the least interesting thing about me. That was what I cared about the most. And since then, things have continued to change. It was a big shift because it was my identity. It was all that I thought that I was. And then Suddenly I had this other role that was forcing itself into my life, and I could no longer reconcile that. I thought, how can this be the most important thing when she is obviously the most important thing?
So that had to be very interesting to navigate because as a very ambitious person, I'm also pulling from my experience too and thinking about my clients as well. Like, I am an ambitious person, I work with ambitious people, but we're trying to find balance is a weird word. I don't really feel like it's a accurate word, but we're trying to find that integration of different roles. And we often, myself included, and so I'll focus on myself and ask you if you've run into this. I often, and my clients often, grapple with what we want to achieve and what's realistic to achieve in this season of life. Did you grapple with that?
Definitely. I would say once I got over the shock of being a new parent and began to settle into my role, a lot of things changed. One, I left Kiara's father, which is a significant milestone in the journey and worth mentioning, even if we're not going to go into it, because it was a massive change in how I allotted my energy and how I saw myself. And that made a pathway for me to say, oh, there are actually things that I really want. I want to write a novel. I want to teach Kiara Chinese. I want to get back to the gym and be really fit. So I had all of these new desires kind of ballooning up under the surface, competing for my attention. And for a while, Amanda, I will say that I'm a very regimented person. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes a day of writing. I'm going to do 10 minutes a day of Chinese. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And that worked for a while, I will tell you. Until it didn't anymore, because it was so much strain on me as a solo parent, trying to also run a business in less than 20 hours a week, which is about how much time I have to run the business every week.
Thank you for sharing that.
Lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the context is important because those limits, those constraints on our lives they force us to prioritize. And in between all of this, I do have some chronic conditions. So I was very sick for a long time from digestive dysfunction, and I wasn't sleeping for a long time. So there was a lot going on, more than just not sleeping because I had a toddler, but like insomnia, not sleeping. So it was a lot of like wrestling with how do I take care of myself and move forward on the goals that are important to me.
So much great context. Thank you again for sharing all of that. And I'm curious. So, thank you for sharing also that you tried the 10 minutes of this and 30 minutes of this. And because I mean, structure is great for those of us who love it, like we thrive in it. However, life throws curveballs all the dang time. I mean, so hardcore. And so you can tell that's what was happening. How did you go from, okay, here's my plan, and then when the plan was like, ha ha ha, this isn't working, like what did you do in that moment to kind of navigate that experience altogether and find your new normal, if that's a phrase we can use here?
Yeah, and I will say that structure, because I like structure also, I like systems, it worked for me. I wrote a first draft of a novel. It's 90,000 odd words. Kiara can speak Chinese now.
That's awesome.
These are things that happen because of this structured system. And when I won't call it burnout, I'll call it maybe a slump. Like I just hit this point where I couldn't find joy in any of the goals that used to bring me joy. I was like, I used to love to write to 8 months ago. Learning Chinese was exciting and fun. And now it feels like a slog, and I'm like wading through the muck. Why does it feel like this? And because I'm forcing it every day, that stole all of my energy, just drained it away. And so I stopped doing everything, Amanda.
Wow.
I told myself I am not allowed to read books, listen to podcasts, I'm not allowed to even like anything that would qualify as me being productive. I am no longer allowed to do it. When Kiara goes to sleep at night, I'm going to sit in my room and do absolutely nothing, which I realize is an extreme stance to take. I'm not one of those people who are like, this is normal. But I knew I needed a radical shift in perspective if I was going to dig myself out of the hole that I had dug myself into.
That's extremely uncomfortable. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just picturing you at night, sitting in a chair or sitting in the bed thinking, this is the most uncomfortable I've ever been. Of like, when you're someone who likes to do things and feel productive, to rest is so hard. So I can see why you needed that radical shift. How long did you stay in that like hard pause?
Good question. I thought it was going to be 2 or 3 days. It ended up being 1 or 2 months
Wow.
that I just didn't do anything. So I will say that like I allowed myself to do some things like meditate, and it wasn't like a strict meditation practice. During meditation, I would often journal, jot things
Hmm.
down. I would get up and dance or sing or move my body, whatever felt good in the moment. I would sometimes just lay in the bed. I'm doing a safe and sound protocol for nervous system regulation, so I would do that. And I would do stuff like this where I'm like, okay, this is going to help me feel restored, and that's
Right.
allowed. None of this is productive. This is just for my base health. So yeah, it lasted 1 or 2 months. And then slowly, I began to notice, oh, I have a bit more space to read this novel. Oh, I have an interest in learning maybe just one word in Chinese and like not letting it be, I have to do this every day. But when I feel like it, I will, because I had to, I think, rebuild trust in my ability to notice what brings me joy again and what can sit out for a while.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. I like that. I'm just letting that marinate a little bit. And so I want to go into a little bit more of a tactical piece because I think sometimes when we listen to podcasts and we hear someone talk through their story, it's hard to picture the whole thing. So here you are a parent and you're a business owner, and you're saying once Kiara goes down for the evening, you're doing nothing. But to be clear, during the day, you are working, correct?
During the day, I am doing so damn much, which is
Okay.
part of the problem, right?
Right.
I'm running a household.
Right.
Every single minute of my day is
Yeah.
spoken for. And I time block my calendar so that I can make the most of each moment when she is not here, when she's at school with her dad. So I am so on the nose for every other hour of my life that it made sense that after she went to sleep and I had a chance to rest, when I kept being on the nose, it was too much. It was too much over a long period of time.
That's great. Because I would hate for someone to hear this and be like, Cher just wandered around her house all day. She didn't do anything. Because I know that is not what was happening, right? On the other side of this, like you still have clients, you still have all these other things. Like you said, you're running a household, you're doing all the things. And so I just wanted to make it clear to anyone listening, like you were doing those things. You didn't check out of life. You're talking about the margin of the day that is yours, but you weren't allowing it to be yours. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I have a really terrible tendency that I'm working on now to throw a wet blanket on my own fire of fun. So
Okay.
I took something that was joyful for me and I made it work
Oh my
in the margin
gosh.
of my day
I'm
where I
raising
should
my
have been
hand.
resting.
I do this.
Exactly.
We all like I feel like I'm learning how to knit right now, and one of my friends is
Mm.
teaching me how to knit because she makes like a lot of her clothes, and I'm amazed that she does this. I've never knitted a dang thing in my life until now. I do have one scarf that I have finished. Just finished it last weekend at the time of this recording. But she told me, she was like, Amanda, I have a feeling that you are going to think about monetizing this. And I'm going to challenge you to try and not think about monetizing this hobby. And it's hard.
Yes, I would say that to bring it to a macro perspective, I've internalized capitalism. Like, I'm a
Mm,
business owner and I have internalized an oppressive system that makes me think that I can't rest, that I have to be productive, and that everything needs to make me money. And
mm,
those thoughts, that internalization has harmed me physiologically, mentally, and emotionally. And
mm.
spiritually, I will say too.
Right. And it's interesting because it's like we need to pay attention to these things. We need to really notice them. I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I'm noticing it right now. But also recognizing that it's really interesting and I think a cool thing when we do have ambition. So it's like we don't want to put the wet blanket on our ambition, but we need to find that in between of having the ambition but not burning ourselves out.
Yes. Earlier, when you said that balance is a weird word, I often like to substitute it with flexibility. This
Ooh, I like it.
capacity to be flexible in each situation and with each need or desire that I have. And that's what comes to mind here, right? Like, I still have ambition. I'm a very ambitious person. I cannot help myself. I want to do things and make things. And I have very real human limits. So, how can I be flexible with what I want and prioritize so that I can get at least one thing done at a time?
Right.
Because I want to do it all at once, is the problem.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Everyone just said, yes, Cher. I believe that too. Like every single person that I work with and that I've heard from in my little bubble of the internet says like, I have so many things I want to do. And I say, I believe that you can do anything that's put on your heart because it's there for a reason. And when it goes away, and that's fine too. Like our goals can change, but we can do all these things. But we can't do them all at the same time. And it's a hard
So sad.
reality. I know. But we can't. It's like we have to figure out what is the priority. And I remember learning that, and I can't remember what year. I'll have to go back and fact check this one, but it's a long time ago. The word was priority, and then one person said priorities, and all of a sudden it became plural, but you literally cannot have more than one priority, which I think is so fascinating.
Yes, that's just going to sit with me for a while. I appreciate that reflection.
Right. And it's really hard. And I listen to so many things like you saying, like, I can't read books, I can't listen to podcasts, because it's like we take all this information in. And I remember hearing like, if you want to know what your priority is, look at your calendar and what's on your calendar. And the reality is, if most of us looked at our calendar, it is business. If we're running a business, because we've got meetings, we've got clients, we've got all these things. And it does take up a good majority. And it's also other people's things. It's the soccer games. It's all these other things for other people. And very rarely do you see your own stuff on your own calendar. And that was an eye-opening experience to me. Have you had that aha moment too?
Yeah, there was a time when I did the Artist's Way. I'm sure you've heard of it before.
Yeah.
And she recommends that we do weekly artist dates. And that was the first time in a long time that I was like, oh, I have a time block on my calendar that's just for me to do literally whatever I want. What kind of a freedom is this?
Right. Yeah. And it's so interesting that we don't do that for ourselves. And I'm going to say, which is probably not very fair, that Americans are probably the worst at this. I'm not really sure, but because we have this feeling of like we have to deserve or earn free time, you know? And I have very much enjoyed encouraging my clients. Like I'm working with a client now, and she has really lost that. Like she's built a very successful business, but she doesn't have free time, like her creative time. And I said, I want you to have just one thing this month that you plan with a friend and you take off an afternoon and you do that, because she's got that flexibility. It's not going to like bankrupt her or anything. Like she's got it, right? And it is almost impossible. Like she's really struggling with doing that. And it's just made me think a lot about it of like, why are we so hard on ourselves about doing the fun things? And you've done a great job of prioritizing fun things.
Yeah, I would say that that's been the biggest lever that the most significant lever that I've pulled in my business of late, which is like, how can I make more room for fun? And for the stuff that isn't naturally fun, how can I like pump it up a little bit? So an example of this is I have to send, for like relationship curation and network growth, emails all the time of like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, it's your birthday. All of these, right, thank you cards. And I made up a game called Connection Bingo. And I play it with my business friends. And we have a scorecard, and whoever hits bingo first wins a prize. So we have usually 3 rounds that we do like once a month. And that's a really fun way for us to all get our connection needs met, our networking needs met in a really fun way.
That is fantastic. You are so creative. I love anytime I get your emails. Speaking of emails, we're going to make sure to put that in the show notes because I love your emails. They're so good. And I always read them, and I get a lot of emails, Cher, but I always read yours. It's so good. I've told you this many times, and I just love it. But you are so creative in how you're like figuring out how to make things fun that aren't always fun. I love that you did that, not just amp up what is naturally fun for you, but like if you know something is important in your business and you don't necessarily like it that much, you found a way to make it fun, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I would say my biggest takeaway in trying to make things fun was bringing other people alongside me. We're in silos in our
Right.
businesses oftentimes. Even if we're in like mastermind groups or these things, we're generally alone a lot of the time. And that makes things feel insular to me in a way that's not generative. And even if I'm an introvert, which I am, pockets of time with people that I adore, whose values I align with, it's so generative for me. And it makes things feel exciting and fun and fresh in a way that I can't duplicate in my own little cage that I create for myself.
Right. That's great. And I'm thinking back to, I know you still host them every now and then, but I mean, one of the first, like, I don't even remember what you called it. It was an invite only networking event, basically, where you're like, oh, it's cool people that I know that I want to bring together. I am still friends with people I met on that first call from you. So you
Yeah,
made that fun.
that makes me so happy. Yeah, for the whole year, I was experimenting with what's it like to bring people in business together to discuss things that aren't about business.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah.
created a different kind of connection beyond conversions or any of the things that are crowding our brains all week long.
It's fantastic. It was so fun. And like I said, I'm still friends with several people. And if anyone that I met on any of your calls reached out, I would immediately help them, right? Because it was like such a fun connection point. So I enjoy that you find that way of making things fun. And so taking it from, okay, you are still ambitious. So the title or that qualifier of you being ambitious, how has you've kept that ambition and it's changed over time with what, but how do you approach goal setting and goal pursuit now versus when you were 24 and just starting that business and trying so hard to get on the 30 under 30 list?
Yeah. Some of the recent mindset shifts that I've had have been around if I'm forcing the outcome, because I love an outcome. I know you do
Mm-hmm.
too. Love an outcome.
Yes.
And I'll do it from a business layer down to a home layer where I'm like, I had to finish the laundry. I started
Yes.
it. So it has to happen. And it doesn't have to happen, right? So one of the things I've noticed is when am I making up and following a rule that I made up a long time ago that no longer serves me?
Ooh, that's good.
Really transformational for me to be like, wow, most of what I think I have to do is total BS. I've really been deceiving myself. And then the next thing is if the point of having a goal is to change throughout the process, to become a different, more aligned version of myself, then how can I every day notice alignment? Because we say it's about the process, we don't really believe it. We
Right.
just want the outcome.
Right.
So I have to go so micro. I have to say, did I live in a way that was in alignment with my priority, singular,
So hard.
and the things that are important to me? And if not, how can I readjust for tomorrow? Because I am not going to put my body on the line anymore for stuff that, frankly, doesn't matter in the long term when the in real time transformation is what's actually important to me. Do I feel freer today? Do I feel more connected today? These are the questions that I'm trying to guide myself with. And it's a challenge because I default to, but did it get done?
Yeah. Well, that's really tough. I'm going to let that one sit. That one's going to be one that's going to sit with me for a while because I, like you, am a finisher. Like if I start something, it's very, very, very difficult for me to stop. I mean, I will watch a movie that's really bad until the end because I have to finish the movie. Whereas my husband is like, we're 15 minutes in. This is a horrible movie. We should turn it off. And I have a struggle with that. It's a really difficult thing. The interesting part is it allows me to finish a lot of projects. So it's a
Yes.
beautiful thing. And so I've started to try and understand that something can be good and bad at the same time. And so that idea of finishing something, but I like the question of does it really have to be finished? Like for real, for real. So I'm going to hold on to that one and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Which is what we're all doing, right? We're just throwing in, seeing what happens.
Right. I mean, and sometimes things work and sometimes it doesn't. And so we just have to try. So thank you for giving me that little nugget. That's a huge nugget. I'm going to hold on to it. And maybe even, I'm interested to hear what you think about this. maybe even force myself not to finish something on purpose, like the laundry or something.
Yeah, my client Beatriz Victoria Albina talks about baby kitchen steps. She says baby steps are way too big when we're trying to change our programming, right? So
Yeah,
if we take baby kitchen steps, which are
that's
much, much
cute.
tinier and cuter, we have
Yes.
a better chance at letting our nervous systems feel safe
Mm.
to make those changes. So yes, I would say just the laundry or just
Hmm.
leaving one plate in the sink for some people who really need a kitchen clean at the end of the
Oh
night.
my gosh, that
Right.
I started sweating when you just said that. Like that is me. And I'm like, but I just like kitchen clean. But maybe I'll try a cup. I'll try a cup. We'll just see what happens. It's fun to think about those things. So, if you're open to this idea of when we think about running a business, oftentimes we have to understand revenue. And so we don't have to hang out in the money bucket too much. But sometimes when this idea of having a conversation about a goal and it changes and I need to take care of my body, a lot of the time it ends up the panic sets in of, well, I have to pay my bills. So at some level, like, and I'm remembering, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm remembering when you had Kiara, your structure of your company changed because I remember you having more of a team. And did that play into that? You, I don't want to say letting go of a team, but like you changed your business structure. And I'm wondering if that allowed you some more financial freedom.
100%. So I mentioned that when I got back from maternity leave, I looked at the landscape of my business and I thought, there's so much inefficiency built into what I have created. And this doesn't work if I only have 10 hours, 12 hours a week. Something has to give. And I think some people might have thought, okay, well, let's put more on the team. Because at that point, I had a junior publicist who also did admin stuff for the team. And we had a couple of other contractors on team that weren't as consistent, but were available. And that could have been my answer, right? Just scale up, right? Add more people. But I knew
Mm-hmm.
my role is changing from single person to parent. I have this little person who I'm learning all about. I don't have time to manage people. I don't have time to give them like the care and consideration and time that I'd want to. So everyone has to go. So I created some, I hope, generous exit plans for the contractors. I let everyone go and I looked at the basics of what I did every week and tried to make it make sense again, given the circumstances of my life, and trying to lose as much inefficiency as I possibly could. So I went from working before maternity leave, I would say again, like 40 to 60 hours a week, to comfortably working 15 hours a week. I also raised my prices, which made a difference, right? And I could comfortably have 3 clients on roster, done for you clients, which is like every 6 months I have these clients and usually stay on for several years, and make enough money to run the business and make enough money also to eventually become a solo parent.
Wow. Thank you for going through that because I think it's so interesting. We'll hear these things on a podcast. We'll hear someone's story. And we're like, that is so cool that she did that. That is so awesome. But we get in the weeds in our own life and we say, but she must have had it differently. She must have had something. And so I appreciate you going into that a little bit more because what I try really hard to do is to hear these stories on the podcast, but also make it very, very attainable for the person listening, no matter what they're going through. Not that your experience and their experience is going to be the same, but you figured it out. And I believe that anyone listening can figure it out too. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about the behind the scenes.
Of course, yeah. And it wasn't all at once, right? Like that's really, really important to note. The first thing I did was let everyone go. The next thing I did was look at how many emails I was sending and think like, do I need to send all these emails to people?
Right.
Do my clients are they helpful, these emails? And really getting into a place of co-creation with my clients and saying, what's helpful for you in the booking and interview process? Because I bet I'm doing stuff that is extraneous. Like it's not important to you, but I think it's important because that's like how I've always done things. So just really re-examining those structures.
That's great. What I'm hearing in the through thread of all of this is that there is a moment, depending on how long the time is, it depends, of pause and like a significant pause. Like you paused doing things like consuming information to try and get back to yourself. You paused people being on your team to reevaluate what your business needed to become. And so what I'm hearing is this strong emphasis on pausing So have you noticed that in your life that pause really helps?
Yeah, it reminds me of our very human need to kind of retreat and then come back. Retreat and then come back. We need some time alone, but we also need community. And so those pauses, I think, let us have some time with us so that we can come back renewed and refreshed with different ideas and a new perspective to be with people. And I think the pausing is important, but more than just the pausing, it's the way that the pause makes space for us to pay attention.
Ooh.
And for me to engage in my life with full attention is what has fundamentally changed who I am as a person. It has helped me quit social media. It has helped me read more books. It has helped me get things done that are actually important to me. Like that paying attention is like so vital.
It's so good. And it makes me think of your email because that's attention worthy, which is attention on other people, obviously. But so interesting that that word is coming through as well. So you've got this pause that you have in your life and in your business and setting goals and all of the things. Like the pause is important, and it allowed you to pay attention to yourself, to pay attention to your clients, to pay attention to your beautiful daughter and your life and all those things. So what to kind of wrap this up. And so as we're wrapping this up, of course, I want you to tell everyone where they can find you, but I'd love for you to leave everyone with, if they're in this moment of everything feels scattered or they feel overwhelmed, and this idea of taking a pause is really hitting home for them, how would you suggest, whether it's a question or a tactic or whatever you want to do, what is their next step after listening to this podcast episode in order to step into that pause?
It reminds me of you, actually. I think this would be maybe your advice, was just to take a look at your calendar and to identify where you have space, right? If you don't have the data to make a decision, how can you make a decision that makes sense for you and your circumstances? Because everyone's circumstances are different. So I might have an hour and a half after bedtime and you might have 15 minutes, but you don't know that until you look at your calendar and say, could this time block be shorter? These things are important for us to know, for us to get a sense of where you're really at. If you don't want to do that, which I understand because it takes a lot of extra work, I would say maybe take 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes where you could be answering emails. 5 minutes where you maybe need to go outside, right? Like, we just forget how to take care of ourselves because we're so concerned with the outcomes. I love an empty email inbox. It's really hard for me to walk away from a full email inbox. But when I spend 10 minutes outside and come back, there is like a new energy that I can bring to this space where I'm like, actually, these 15 emails can wait until tomorrow. Let me do what's actually important to me. It's like the reset that I need. So find time for a reset in your schedule, and maybe that's a good place to start.
I love that. I 100% agree. The more I can get outside, which I recognize, some days you can't. It's raining, it's whatever. It's like there's some days you can. But on the days that you can, oh my gosh, when I can do that, getting out, when all I want to do is stay right here and finish the thing. And I'm in this cozy office that's really pretty and all these things. And it's like, but once I actually get out and I walk for 10 minutes around the block, or even just stand in my backyard or whatever the case is, it's like it gives a different perspective. It is like hitting a reset button. And it's like, gosh, I really thought I had to do all these 15 things, but I don't really have to do those 15 things I just told myself I did.
Yeah, for me, a bird song is a really great click into reality. I'm like, these birds are not answering emails out here. They're just living their best lives in these trees, singing all day long. And there's something that's real grounding for me about bird song that gets me right back into reality. I'm like, this is what's actually important.
That's beautiful. I'm going to think of you when the birds are singing to me later today. That's so pretty. I love that. Cher, you're a joy. I am so grateful to call you a friend and that we are connected in this wonderful world. I'm so thankful to have you in my life. And I know everyone is going to want to run and sign up for your email list because I've talked about it so much and will continue to. But also, where can people find out more about working with you, learning more from you, all that good stuff?
2 good places. So Ginkgo PR is GINKGOPR.com. I'm here for all of your authorial or visibility needs as you write or publish a book. And then there is my Substack called Doing It for the Attention, which is all about the ways that asking for attention has been weaponized against us. We're business owners. We need to ask for attention. So how can we become comfortable and at ease asking for help, essentially? And that's at fortheattention.substack.
I love it. I will have all the links for sure. And I cannot recommend you enough, not only for the Substack because your great emails come through and I just love them. And I've learned and connected with so many cool people because you have brought attention to them, but also I cannot recommend you enough. You getting me on my podcast book tour was amazing. And so if anyone is looking for more support and getting that attention,
Thank you, Amanda.